Welcome to Beacon of Speech. I'm Fred Hunt. That's Ted Coley. Hey, Ted Coley.
Hello.
Poor Ted. Poor Ted. Usually what happens, we do Beacon of Speech. We do a little bit of a pre-warm-up, right?
A preamble.
A preamble. But today, I tortured Ted. We went out to dinner together because we wanted to talk about Culver's. Culver's, the restaurant. What does Culver's have to do with Beacon of Speech? Absolutely nothing. We just went and we were talking about workplace politics. Would you say that's fair? Workplace gossip. So here's my Culver's cup.
Culver's.
Culver's is very good. And Ted made me laugh because I said, that was good, wasn't it? And Ted said,
yeah.
I said, would you ever go there again? And he said,
no.
Again, I like Culver's. They just go right down the street.
I would go there again.
You just don't. You just wouldn't seek it out. You wouldn't be like, oh, I wish I had Culver's tonight and didn't go out.
No.
Whereas like I said, Culver's is, the Culver's people probably sue us already 2 minutes in, right? But the Culver's isn't. I mean, it's like a nicer version of Wendy's. And you said that was fair.
No, it was good. The food was good.
Yeah, and it was good. The problem is that the whole time Ted is eating, Ted got a mushroom burger. I got a mushroom burger. Ted had his mushroom burger, and the whole time I'm like, yeah. So by the time we get to Beacon of Speech, Ted is already like, oh my God, he's going to talk for another hour.
So maybe that's what, maybe it was the atmosphere that I had a problem with.
Maybe you would like Culver's more if I was not there with you. I think you might be onto something. But Culver's, and I'm going to tell you something. This is what I told Ted. Culver's has the best root beer ever. If I was 15 years old and I was like loving sweet root beer like a good kid should, I would just put my head under a nozzle and just drink that root beer. It's so good, and it's got that vanilla taste to it. There is no better root beer than Culver's root beer.
How many times have you been there?
Just today was like my 5th time, maybe 4th. But again, at my age, I don't want sweet root beer anymore. You know what I mean? That's why I got the Coke, and then I just got juice. So I shouldn't say Coke because technically it's Pepsi. So aren't you glad we started out? We're talking about freedom of speech today, and we're talking about Culver's. We're going to pick on Ted Coley. Ted Coley, be as honest as you can. Okay. In any given situation in the world, whether you are at Culver's ordering dinner, whether you're at work with your boss, whether you are at your mom's house with your brothers, no matter where you are in life, do you worry about what you have to say in today's America?
Yeah.
Do you feel like sometimes you're like, you know what, I can't say that, I can't say this, I can't say that, I can't say anything. Okay? And that's what we're going to talk about today. No! We're going to talk about freedom of speech if you're barking!
Oh, there's a rabbit out there.
I'm going to let you out! We don't want to have to kill Kevin! Kevin, we're doing a podcast! We'll let you understand! Hey, Marvin is not going to attack us!
It's like a hunting dog.
All right, Ted, are you listening? Freedom of speech in America! See that rabbit? Go get that rabbit. Oh, he almost got the rabbit! Oh! He almost got him, Ted. Would you say he was fairly close? Oh, now he's going to pee so the rabbit knows that this is my yard. Okay?
Is that what he's going to do?
Yeah, he pees over there so the rabbit understands that this is his yard. Watch him. See, this is great webcasting. Watch him. See, he pees, and now the rabbit knows this is his territory. He might pee again.
So the rabbit will never come back there.
Yeah, and then tomorrow the rabbit comes back. Get over here, Kevin. Come on. Wow, this is awesome webcasting, isn't it?
It's the best. Man.
So anyhow, the dog has shown the rabbit that he means business. He marked his territory. And if you came back tomorrow, that rabbit's still going to be right there because it does not care about my dog marking the yard. Thank you, Kevin, for saving us from rabbits. And again, if it was a murder or even a big mammal, I'd be like, well, thank you, Kevin, and I'd mean it. But he saved us from a goddamn rabbit. What's that rabbit going to do? It's going to nibble on my toes. It might steal our lettuce out of the fridge.
If it was a murderer, he would probably hide, right?
One time, we came home from my relative's house, right? And I don't remember, but it wasn't one of my family. It was one of my in-laws. There was a goddamn deer, right, on my front sidewalk. Not the one by the street, on the sidewalk by the house, right? 5 feet from my house. There's no way that dog did not see that deer there, right? But the deer is huge. My dog's hiding in the basement. It's like, that deer is more dangerous than that little rabbit. And that's why people are like, why are you always yelling at your dog? Because he protects us from rabbits, and he's afraid of the deer, and they make him cry.
So he solves problems that do not exist.
Yeah. Does that sound familiar? Nice job, Kevin. And I'm not yelling at my kid. My dog's name is Kevin. Okay. So anyhow, are you in a situation where you're afraid to say stuff? And you said yes. Okay. Now, we're going to start with Donald Trump and CNN. Okay. And remember, in situations you're afraid to say, one of the things, and be honest, one of the reasons that people like Donald Trump is Donald Trump says what goes into his brain, and I don't think he cares one bit about whether CNN is listening, whether his mom is listening, whether his boss is listening. He doesn't have a boss, but you see what I'm saying. Do you think that Donald Trump ever puts a filter on his mouth? He's talking to Howard Stern, talking about strippers and stuff. All these people are like, Donald Trump slept with porn stars. It's like, you listen to Howard Stern, he was talking about that 10 years ago. It's like, well, how'd your first marriage? Well, I cheated on my wife and I was sleeping with strippers and porn stars. Right? A lot of people like Donald Trump because of freedom of speech. I'm not saying whether Donald Trump's doing a good job or a bad job, but do you respect that he says what is on his mind?
Yeah.
And deep down, you're like, I wish no, I don't have that problem. I filter more than I used to, but, I used to not filter at all. I was similar as what goes in my head. I'd be like, oh, you're at a funeral and, you say something inappropriate or whatever. So that would happen to me.
You've said inappropriate things at funerals?
Oh, yeah. I say inappropriate things everywhere.
Like what? Like, what did you say at a funeral that was inappropriate?
Okay, let me give you an example. My mom's sister, and hopefully my mom doesn't listen. Mom's sister died, right? And, this is a long story. Do you really want to hear about my mom's sister?
I think you told me this, but...
Oh, I told you this because she's crazy, okay? Here.
Now, wait a minute. This is your mom's sister, the one that was crazy, died.
Yeah.
Because the story you told me was somebody else died and your mom's sister was at the funeral and she was wearing like a tracksuit or something.
Oh, no. Same okay. Okay. All right.
Am I like mixing things up?
No. The same sister. Let me start from the beginning. I'm going to start at the beginning. Okay. I'm writing this down so I don't forget. My grandmother, dear departed, grandma, right? She died. And I had an illness where I could barely walk. I had Guillain-Barré. And I've talked about this before.
This was at the same time?
At the same time. So I could not move. I'm sitting in the chair. My grandma's in the casket. And I'm sitting in the chair, and I barely have use of my arms and legs. I'm just sitting there. And I'm watching everything, And some people will come over, oh, Fred, I haven't seen you in 10 years. I'd be like, oh, yeah, good to see you. And it was almost like, you ever see Princess Bride?
Yeah.
Where the part where he's like, maybe I can move and maybe I can't move. And that's how I was at the funeral. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing good. And, I would just sit there and I'm watching everything. My aunt comes in, right? Crazy aunt. She comes in. She's wearing a purple jumpsuit. I can't remember if it was purple or green or whatever. But it was a jump. And when I say jumpsuit, I mean like a sweatsuit. You see what I'm saying? Head to toe. And it was...
Is it sort of like what Elvis used to wear? Only
yes.
Purple?
Yeah. Yeah, and it was like that. And she come in, and I'm like, and she's like, "Oh, hey, Freddie," and I'm like, "Ah, I can't get away! I can't move! Hi, it's my aunt." And she's like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "Ah, please, I can't
This
move."
is your mom's sister?
Mom's sister, and it was at my grandmother's, and my mom, she's wearing a dress, and her sister's wearing a dress, and they're all wearing black, and they're all,
And this is your mom's mom who passed away?
yeah, my mom's mom, and so I can't get away, and all I can think of is I'm stuck there, and I'm like, why is she wearing a green sweatshirt, or why is she wearing a purple sweatsuit? And I forget the color because I wish I like took a picture, okay, but I couldn't move my hands. But I remember it was an off-brand sweatsuit / pantsuit. It was the ugliest thing I ever saw, and I think you could have bought it at Walmart for like $12, like from neck to feet, right? But she was crazy, okay? So what had happened is my aunt, a few years later, she ended up dying, okay? And when she died in Flint, Michigan, which is horrible, right? And I remember at her funeral.
Now,
and-
she's the one who said her husband was like a fat Joey G.
Yeah, yeah, that's the one. So she's dead, and she's in the casket, and her kids aren't there yet, right? And I'm looking around, and they're playing that Sarah McLachlan song where they have the dogs in the kennels. You ever see that?
Yeah.
And so they got it on a loop, right? And in the front, you walk in the front door, it's Black Jesus, right? In Flint, Michigan. And then you walk into the thing, and they're playing the Sarah McLachlan songs over and over, the sad one with the dog in the kennel. And I'm sitting there, and I'm not thinking it, I'm saying it. I'm like, hey! I'm like, do black people just think that every white person likes Sarah McLachlan? Or is that just me?
No, wait a minute. What you said Black Jesus. What's that? What do you mean?
It's Jesus, but he's black. When you walk in, when you walk into a funeral home, there'll be a picture of Jesus or something. They didn't have white Jesus, so it was black Jesus, right?
Oh, I didn't know what you were talking about at first.
Yeah, it's black. You've never seen black Jesus?
No.
Yeah,
no, so they had a picture of Jesus, but he was black?
Yeah, and then the next picture, as you walk into my aunt's, funeral, and as you can see, I'm not black, okay? It was Jesus shaking Martin Luther King's hand, okay? Because you remember when that happened.
Yeah. I remember that. I've seen that before.
Yeah. So Jesus, they've got black Jesus here. Next picture over is Jesus shaking Martin Luther King's hand. And we're in there, and they're playing Sarah McLachlan, and it's not in the background. It's like loud. So you have to talk loud over Sarah McLachlan. Right? And I remember everything I said that day was loud. And almost every other thing I said was inappropriate. And of course, I didn't sit next to her husband, right? Fat Joey G. And her kids weren't there. They did come. They just weren't there. And I think everything I said was inappropriate. And I'm like, I think I said, at least they didn't bury her in the sweatsuit. And I'm pretty sure, I know I said the thing about Sarah McLachlan that, black people assume that white people like Sarah McLachlan, right? And
so what was it, like a black funeral home? Or?
Well, it was in Flint.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And like I said, I don't have a problem one way or the other. The people, they did a great job. Other than the volume, they did a great job with my aunt's funeral, right? But I don't think they were, she lived right down the street, so they picked a cheap funeral home that was right down the street. And my aunt had some, personal issues. But, so almost everything I said, like, oh, there's her ex-husband. What's he doing here? I thought he was hooked on crack and in the gutter. Right? And again, I'm not being a jerk. I'm trying to...
This isn't Fat Joey G. It's her ex-husband?
Well, okay. Yes, this is her first husband who she divorced from. And
so it's not Fat Joey G.
No, her first husband. But again, I'm yelling it not to be a jerk. I'm yelling it so people can hear me over Sarah McLachlan.
Wouldn't it be funny if, like, while you're in the middle of saying something, they turn it off?
Yeah, and oh! But the whole thing is, her first husband, it was funny because, I'm a kid. I'm running around. and she's younger than my mom, and I just remember, and because you have memories like this from when you were a kid, I remember going to my grandma's, and there's my aunt, and so, oh, hi, aunt, blah blah blah, I want to say her name, right? And she's like, oh, my boyfriend's over, and I'd walk around from the front door around the wall into the living room, and he had a dirt bike taken apart on the living room floor with newspapers, and he's like, oh, I'm working on the carburetor. And all I could think of is, why is Grandma and Grandpa letting my aunt's boyfriend work on a motorcycle in the living room with the carburetor on a piece of paper, right? Not like in my head, I'm like, nothing makes sense, right? Because that wouldn't make sense to you, would it?
No.
And so everything, when it came to my aunt, it always went back to the carburetor story. Like, why is there a motorcycle in the living room? And why is it taken apart? And why is there a carburetor on the newspaper? And just like when she passed away, it was under mysterious circumstances. I told you about that, about how people in the family think that Fat Joey G killed her, right? Because my aunt the week before had tried to kill him. And now that she's dead, I can talk about it. But basically, she was in some drug-induced haze, and I've told you this story. Drug-induced haze, and he said, you need help. She said, you need help. He said, I'm going to call the cops. She says, you call the cops, I'll kill you. He locks himself in the bathroom, calls the cops. And again, this is my aunt. Runs up the stairs, grabs a saw, starts cutting through, not like an axe, like in
The Shining?
In Shining, with a saw. She's cutting through the door. Here come the cops. Cops are like, oh my God, what are you doing?
With a power saw?
With some sort of power saw. Cutting through the door with the power saw, right? Cutting through the door with a power saw. And, wow. Cops come, because he's scared, right? He's like, oh my God, my wife's going to kill me, right? And not figuratively, literally. And the cops come in, they're like, put down the saw. And she's like, ah! Boom, stun gun. She's on the ground.
Oh, wow.
Right. I don't even know if they said drop the saw. They might have just stunned her right off, right? And so she's sent away, and of course she has mental issues. And of course the husband didn't want to press charges. But then she mysteriously died in the night, right? They said it was sleep apnea, but again, if sleep apnea...
And this was shortly after, or was it that night?
No, a week later. What happened is once they stun gunned her, they took her to a hospital, took her to a psych ward, and then I think they let her go like a week or two later. And then once they let her go, they're like, oh, no, she's back on her medication. She won't kill him. And the husband didn't press charges because he's like, oh, well, at the end of the day, she never got the saw to me, and I still love her, and I know she's just crazy. You see what I'm saying? Do you want to go back up? We're never going to talk about freedom of speech because of you, Kevin. Nobody's going to know about it. Nobody's going to know what happened to crazy Aunt blah, blah, blah. Okay? Come on over here. Okay, so she gets back from the mental psych ward or wherever. The night she comes home, not the night after she tried to kill him, but the night she came home, right? She went to bed. She turned on the sleep apnea machine, right? And sometime during the night, she took off the sleep mask. She went out to smoke. I don't know what she was smoking. Came back and did not put the machine back on, and she woke up dead, right? Well, the coroner said, sleep apnea, on my way. He did not dwell, right? It could have been 50 different things. You see what I'm saying? And people in the family have been like, well, in theory, he could have smothered her with a pillow.
Yeah.
And said sleep apnea. And the coroner didn't do a coroner's report. And I'm like, well, yeah, but even if he killed her, it's not like she wouldn't have died the next week anyhow from something else. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And because there was.
Now, did you say that at the funeral?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
Yeah. I said because somebody mentioned that how do we know sleep apnea is what really killed her? And I think my exact words were, if sleep apnea didn't get her, something else would have killed her. I mean, she was on the train. She was on, there's death. I'm going to get there as soon as I can. Right?
How old was she?
50 something,
Yeah.
late 50s. She wasn't that old.
Wow.
Yeah, and some of the stuff I heard secondhand, and some of it, you get the idea. But anyhow, so yes, I have said inappropriate things at inappropriate time, and like I said, that whole funeral, right? The whole funeral, I'm talking like that, right? And then when her kids came, you don't want to say that stuff in front of her kids, and then you kind of dial it back, but it took a little while for me to dial it back. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So is that a good example?
I forget why we even started talking about that.
We were talking about it is because you are afraid to say stuff in certain situations. Yeah. Okay? So back to Donald Trump. Donald Trump, he's doing the, whatchamacallit. What's Donald Trump doing? Oh, he's attacking CNN. He's attacking CNN. And this is why we have to delineate free speech issues here. Okay? Donald Trump attacks CNN, and part of me is like, well, good. I'm glad he's not afraid to say what's on his mind. And I'm glad that if he thinks he's getting unfair treatment, that he's saying, I think I'm getting unfair treatment. And he's yelling about it. Would you say that's fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you also respect that because you wish that you could say stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Now, CNN, on the other hand, is like, Donald Trump's he's trying to take away our freedom of speech. Okay? What Donald Trump is doing is saying, CNN, you are jerks. Okay?
So, yeah, now people, when somebody disagrees with them, they say, you're trying to take away my freedom of speech.
Exactly. So CNN is like, you're trying to take away our freedom of speech. And then even Glenn Beck says, you cannot shut up CNN. Now, Donald Trump is not shutting up CNN. What he's saying is, I think they're biased. I think they suck. I think they're fake news. Right? But what has Donald Trump done to try and close CNN?
Nothing.
Nothing. He just says they suck. Okay? In America, you should be able to say that something sucks. Just like when I was at my aunt's funeral, I'm like, well, something would have killed her. Which was 100% true. If sleep apnea didn't, it doesn't matter if it was her husband or sleep apnea or the drugs or whatever. She did not have a long life expectancy. Right? And the same thing with Donald Trump. If Donald Trump thinks he's being treated unfair, if he doesn't actively try to shut down CNN, if he doesn't abuse his power and say, I'm going to take away CNN's license, then he's crossing the line to take away freedom of speech. Today, and you hit the nail on the head, whenever someone disagrees with you, they're like, you're taking away my freedom of speech. Right? In America, you need to be able, there's 300 million people, you need to be able to disagree with each other, but still get along at the end of the day to move forward. Certain people, like, Nazis or what's on the communists, like Nazis and communists. You can't go out and kill minorities. You have to restrict free speech there. In communism, you can't take away all people's money, right? But people go crazy, okay? Even if they took away all your money, you're not up for communism either, right? You have to be able to restrict speech at the very, very ends of the spectrum. But other than that, if you just disagree, Donald Trump is saying what he feels, and CNN is biased. They are flat out biased, and I wrote that article on Beacon of Speech, and I showed it to you, where CNN said that Donald Trump is the worst president since
George W. Bush.
No, they say he was the worst president since Reconstruction in America. Okay? Now, they started the article in CNN, said Donald Trump is the worst president in 150 years. And then they wrote the article. Okay? Well, basically, what CNN is doing is...
And by the way, I'm not saying that I thought George W. Bush was a bad president.
That's what
I know
thought.
that's what...
Right.
That's what they... Because I remember hearing that when George W. Bush was president.
Yep.
Worst president ever.
Worst president ever.
It's like whoever the next Republican president is, that's the worst president.
Right. So CNN says they start their article, Donald Trump, worst president in 150 years, and then they write the article. Well, that's not balanced at all. That is biased. It's now, do I think he's the worst one in 150 years? I don't think so. I think Harding back in the 30s was pretty bad. I don't have a history book in front of me, but I think Warren Harding is considered the worst. But the point is, you can't start a news article that says Donald Trump, worst president in 150 years. And then when
Harding didn't even, what did he serve just like a couple of years? Because he died, right?
I think he did. But you can't start an article like that and then say, we don't know why Donald Trump's being mean to us. Because you're not reporting facts. You're reporting the CNN agenda, which is Donald Trump is horrible. Yeah. Now, CNN has the right to say that. And if Donald Trump doesn't try and shut them down.
The thing is that CNN is not news. All they are is people who just spend every day trying to destroy Trump.
And that's their agenda. Their agenda. You go on CNN, and this is like the third or fourth article I read. The number one story in the day is like a shooting in California. And then you go to CNN and they're like, Trump is horrible. Trump tweeted something bad. You see what I'm saying? So they are an agenda-driven news network. Okay? Their agenda is to tell you how horrible Trump is. And every time they say how horrible he is, they have the free speech to do it. Their opinion is he's the worst president in 150 years. The problem is if Donald Trump has the freedom to say, if I'm the worst president in 150 years, I think that you are fake news. No, we're not! No, we're not fake news. We're real news. And that's where we are in America today.
Yeah, it's bad.
You are afraid of saying it. And that's why people like Trump, right? And again, I don't like Trump, and I voted Libertarian. I've said this over and over and over, almost every episode. But I respect that he says what he feels, right? And when he was with Howard Stern, and he's going to grab him by the hem, right? Yeah. He thought he was off mic, right? A lot of people say crap off mic that they don't say here. Now, because one day I want Beacon of Speech to be successful, I want it to be on TV.
Is there anybody you know, they may have not said words like that, but every person you know has said something at some time that is
absolutely
as offensive as that.
Right. Yeah. And
it may not have been that exact thing, but I've said things that if people found out, there's no way anybody would vote for me.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And so when they talk about that, that's why some of the stuff is fair and some of it's not. Well, CNN says, freedom of speech, he said it. He said it. He said it. Yeah, but you know what? Behind closed doors, a lot of people say things. And again, let me go back to Beacon of Speech.
See, and the thing is that Fred's said things, but everybody already knows what they are because he says them like at funerals, and it's not hidden.
Yeah. Oh, there's people who avoid me because they don't want to hear me talking. Okay? They say, "Oh, Fred can shut up now. He can go on."
Like other people, you would probably have to dig for it, but we already know.
But since I've done Beacon of Speech, one day I want it to be on TV, right? So I purposely self-censor. I do not use the F word when I want to. I don't use the MF word when I want to. I don't use the S word when I want to. But other than not using certain words, and sometimes in a subject, like you don't know how to say it, I try to talk around the subject. But I'm not afraid to talk about it. I just don't want to say it the wrong way. Does that make sense? So on Beacon of Speech, I do try and cut out the swearing. Because eventually, I want to get used to not saying F, this, F that. You know what I mean?
I'm kind of picking on you
right
that's now. Fine. So what I'm saying is that most people, you would probably have to dig and look and ask several people that they know.
Oh, yeah.
What you, like any person who knows you, you could ask them and each one could give a different example of something you've said.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you remember when Fred said that? You remember when Fred said, oh, yeah, remember when Fred said that? Oh, yeah. Yeah. But the thing is, and
Like I said, I know I'm picking.
Oh no, that's okay because that's more than fair. But I tried to answer either. My memory's not 100%. You know that, right? My memory's like 90%. And when I say stuff, I try to see, what the picture is, what I see. But like, there's something at my work, and it's a picture of the number 6, and there's 2 people looking at it. One person's at the top of the number 6. One person's at the number 9. And one person says, I see 6. The other one says, I see 9. That doesn't mean they're both right, but they both see something different.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So sometimes there's different degrees of truth and stuff. But what I'm getting at is with the free speech battles today, everybody's trying to shut that other guy up. And if you don't agree with me, you are taking away my freedom of speech. But that's not true. Everybody has freedom of speech, and that's why I bash on the left so much, because the left will say something, and even if I agree, someone on the right can say, I disagree, and they're like, you're taking my freedom of speech! And CNN is one of the number 1 culprits. Now, if Donald Trump tried to sign into legislation, I want to restrict press, blah, 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 I want CNN, you see what I'm saying? Now, you at home, one of our 3 or 4 viewers, or you, they tried to ban a CNN reporter from the White House. Is that correct?
That I don't know.
Okay. Let's say they did. Okay. Do you follow football, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've heard of reporters getting...
For now.
You've heard of... We're going to talk a lot about football when we're done here, so you better like football. You ever hear of a reporter for a football team, they write something bad about the team, and then the team bans them from the locker room?
No.
I have heard it.
You have?
Yeah, multiple times. Team says, we don't like what you're writing, you're banned. Well, they're banned from the clubhouse, but they're not banned, and let's just use the Cleveland Plain Dealer, because we're here
They're
in
not
Cleveland.
banned from writing.
You're not banned from writing. Go ahead and write whatever you want. You can pay $25, well, the instance I'm thinking is back in the 90s, right? So now, you can pay $100 to watch a Browns game, and you can take your recorder and you can write for 3 hours straight, and you can publish it. All we're doing is taking away your credentials. We don't have to let you in our locker room because you write mean things. Okay? So it's the same exact thing. It's when you get your press credentials taken away. It's the same thing at the White House. If Donald Trump doesn't like what that girl or guy is writing at CNN, he could ban them from the White House, but they can still stand on the lawn. They can send their friends. You see what I'm getting at? They're not restricting their speech to write. They're restricting their access because he thinks they're being treated unfairly. And people are like, oh, well, then you could restrict the press. Ted, the Browns are your favorite team, right? Can you go in and talk to the Browns?
No.
Okay. You want who's your mayor in Garfield Heights?
Vic Culver, I think.
Say you want to write about Vic Calogo or whatever.
Culver.
You can't just walk in his office and say, hey,
No.
right? You need to get access granted. Now, it's easier to get to your mayor than it is to get to the Browns, but you can write about your mayor right now.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And they'd be like, well, in the Constitution, you have to have the freedom of the press is you have to be able to have access, right? Well, yeah, you have to be able to have access to public records, but how many times have you heard of the press suing to get public records because people don't want to release them? You see what I'm getting at? So, I hate to say it, but Trump is right when it comes to CNN. And CNN keeps playing we are an innocent victim, and people like Fred and Ted, and I pointed to the wrong guy, right? People like Ted and Fred, we see through CNN charade.
Yeah.
And what they do is even their reporters, like the person who said Trump was the worst president in 150 years, she wasn't a reporter for CNN. She was a freelancer. But we like what she has to say. And then when Trump complains, they're like, well, technically she's not our reporter. But you chose to publish her, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it gets dicey, where people are like, he's restricting the speech. No, he is giving what CNN is, he's giving what they're dishing out.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, they can't stand it that he fights back.
right, in the past, presidents have been like, well, diplomatic and, blah, blah, blah. Trump is like, no, you suck. You're fake news. Right? But that's his right. And all the way around, it's like when you see two people.
Don't get me wrong. I love it that he just comes out and basically says stuff like that. But it is amazing that we have a president like that.
Yeah, because you would think.
And I say that in a good way. I love it. But I never thought that would happen.
No, me neither. I thought that going to the press and saying the press sucks is beneath the president. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it's not beneath the president because he's like, oh, no, that's not beneath. If you want, we'll sit here. We'll swear at each other. I say, you suck. You come on over here. You give me bad press. Blah, 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 blah. Right? And again, it's almost like he's on a reality show.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, we can have all the conflict we want. Your ratings go up. My ratings go up. Good time rock and roll. I swear to God, this is going to be the episode with the dog. Because everybody's gone, and now the stupid dog is barking because I left him in the backyard. And he did pee again, trying to keep that rabbit away. But Ted, you remember when we worked together? You remember all the loud stories I told you, and then they'd be like, oh, here comes Steve. I'd be like, I don't care if he's coming. We'll have a long conversation. And then Steve would be like, what are you talking about? You better not be being mean to me. No. Oh, actually, yes.
Yeah.
I swear to God! See, I try not to say I swear to God. I'm going to throw something at you! Okay, one more second. Come on!
What's going on over there?
There's a guy with a dog, and they're backing their... You're going upstairs. Go. Now you're going to hear him bark upstairs, but he's barking at the dog and blah, blah, blah. Okay, he's barking at the neighbor's dog. He's protecting us from... You can't see it, but there's an 80-year-old man in a motorized wheelchair and his 20-year-old dog. So Kevin is protecting us from a handicapped man and a 20-year-old dog.
And a rabbit.
And a rabbit. So we can keep talking, use our rights of free speech. Now,
but if a big biker guy comes down, Kevin runs and
he's gone. He's yelping. He's hiding. He's hiding in the basement. I want to talk about freedom of speech and at work. Okay. Now, even though, and you've witnessed it, you've heard me say things I shouldn't have said at work. Would you say that's true?
Yeah. I was thinking it's almost like Trump is taking every superstition and debunked it. You know what I mean? It's like he's breaking mirrors. He's walking under ladders.
Yeah. They're like, you can't say that. He's like, why not? What the hell? You know who sucks? The leader of England. We've been friends with them for 200 years.
You can't say that. It's like, or else what?
Yeah,
I just said it. It's like, what has everybody been so afraid of for 200 years?
Yeah.
It's like, all right, so this came out of a president's mouth. Big deal.
I remember.
Does the world stop turning?
I remember when he said that Kim Jong-un was a madman. He's like, maybe we'll bomb him. Maybe we'll bomb North Korea. And then I read an article a week later, and it wasn't an American newspaper. It was in Reuters, right? In a British newspaper. And I think they said that the leader of North Korea was very confused. And they said that he didn't know what to do because he had never heard anybody talk that way. Whether it was in North Korea, South Korea, China, he never heard some guy who just said, hey! Fake news, fake news! And he's like, what? What's going on here? Is he really going to bomb us, or is he just saying he's going to bomb? You see what I'm saying? like they had no traction to get a feel for him.
Yeah.
You know, and then they shook hands. And,
So do you think all these things that Kim Jong-un is doing, like, I see we got the remains of the Korean War.
Yeah.
Do you think those are legitimate?
oh yeah, I honestly think that Kim Jong Un. I believe that Reuters story that he's not afraid of Trump, right?
Yeah.
But he's confused. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure if he's being serious or not. And you met people like that. You don't know if they're joking around or serious, right? And you remember Justin was like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And you're like, is he being serious or is he teasing? And I think that's how Kim Jong-un thinks of Donald Trump. Like, you know what? We better err on the side of caution here in case he's being serious about bombing us. And I think he's confused.
So that's why he's doing all these things? Like even the remains of the...
Yes,
Because were those were obviously... Their remains were in North Korea then,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think and it's, again, there's a difference between being afraid of somebody and being confused by him. You know what I mean?
Now, I know this is kind of a weird question, but did they send those remains over? Did North Korea send those remains over already in a coffin, or did we like verify that there's?
They sent the remains. I don't know how they sent them, and we verified that they were from the Korean War. We verified. I read that they verified.
So it is the real deal. Those
Right.
are actual. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Which again, now the Korean War, I had an uncle who died, and he was 82, and he was in the Korean War. So most Korean War veterans, it's not like people are sitting at home like, when's Johnny coming home? You know what I mean? They're in their
Yeah,
80s.
I know that.
But my understanding is that they were real and they were verified, so there is some closure for children or grandchildren. And so if, you're 50 and you find out your dad's remains come home, I would think that there'd be a certain amount of, solace in that.
Yeah, because it was.
And when your dad passed away, your dad could have fought in Korea. Is that correct? Your stepdad, I'm sorry.
He could have, but he didn't.
But-
he would have been the right age.
Right, and that's what I'm getting at. He would have been the right age to serve in Korea. And at your age now, you would probably be grateful to have your dad's remains.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's what I'm getting at. But I want to step away from Trump for a second, or else we'll keep going for another half hour. Okay?
I didn't mean that to be funny, but I guess it was.
Do you know what's going on with Urban Meyer this week?
I heard something about him being paid leave. Boy, that'll teach him.
No. This is where things get dicey for freedom of speech. Okay. Urban Meyer was coach at the University of Florida, right?
Yeah.
At the University of Florida, Urban Meyer said, I love all my football team. And didn't they win the national championship at Florida with Tim Tebow? I think they did.
I guess.
Just assume that they did, right? They said that the rap sheet of all his players, all the assaults, all the sexual assaults, all the robberies, all the bad behavior. Don't forget, who was on that the Florida team that I think won the national championship? It was Aaron Hernandez. The one who murdered those people.
Yeah.
And he played for the Patriots, right?
Wow.
And Urban Meyer was still talking to him like, oh, you'll make it through prison, you'll be fine, right? And of course he was wrong. Then he went to Ohio State, and then there's scandal, right? Well, they're trying to crack down on the mean, bad behavior of the 18-year-old minority students, right? And the 20-year-old minority students, you cannot be bad and rape, steal, pillage, right? And Urban Meyer says, you are right. We are going to crack down on those kids. Those kids are going to be good, right? And do you know what happened this week?
Well, one of his assistant coaches, maybe 3 years ago, did he assault his wife?
Yes.
And Urban Meyer, they're saying he knew about it but didn't do anything about it?
Correct.
What was he supposed to do, let him go? Or?
Well, and that's the whole thing. The argument is that Ohio State instituted a policy of if you are a 20-year-old minority student and you not sexually assault, if you assault somebody and you're a 20-year-old minority, you're off the team. And at the same time, he's like, oh, I got an assistant coach who's beating his wife. I know it, but it's really going to suck to fire him. Now, this is where things get confusing. You ready? This is allegedly, okay? Let's keep it alleged, okay? Because I don't know this for a fact. The coach in question was an assistant coach, okay?
Yeah.
I read on 2 different websites that the assistant coach in question is Earl Bruce's grandson.
Oh.
Now, do you know the legacy of Earl Bruce?
Well, he was a coach for Ohio State.
Right. Where was Urban Meyer's first job?
I don't know. Was it Ohio
At
State?
Ohio State under Earl Bruce.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I don't know if this is true or not because it wasn't reported by CNN or Fox News, right? It was on local stations and...
No, Earl Bruce was coach, what, in the 80s? And
Yes.
when did he leave, roughly?
87? 86?
Okay, so did he take over for Woody Hayes?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so...
I think it was Woody Hayes, then Earl Bruce, then John Cooper. Does that sound right? And John Cooper was all through the 90s because John Cooper would go 10-1 but lose to Michigan every year.
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, so people are like, listen, you're telling these kids that they can't do anything bad, but you're keeping someone on your staff who you knew was beating up women for years and years and years.
That's not the same thing.
Well, and that's where we're going. And especially if he's the grandson of Earl Bruce. I do not have it in writing, and that's
Apples and
alleged.
oranges.
Yeah, apples and oranges, that's totally different. So now you are in a sticky situation. Now, let's take
a sticky wicket.
Yeah, let's take away that it's Earl Bruce's grandson just for a second, okay? Now, don't answer this out loud. Just smile or shake your head no. Me and you, do we know anybody that we used to work with who may have assaulted their wife? Yeah, see? See, right there. You know, and I know. And we're not going to go any farther. But we do not have positions of power at our, I don't work there anymore. And you still work there, but you have no power to say whether that person is fired or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, if you knew this information and there was a zero tolerance policy, would you go to your boss, your fat boss, and tell him the information that you know?
No.
No! Hell no! No, it's same thing with Urban Meyer. We are coaches. You see what I'm saying? So now you are stuck. You are literally screwed because your program has a zero tolerance policy, but this guy is basically family. You see what I'm saying? If it really is Earl Bruce's grandson, he has literally known this guy since he was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And now he's one of the coaches. Now you're screwed all the way around. And now people are screaming, listen, you kicked him off the program. I haven't known him since I was 10 years old. You see, so now you're bringing in all these other complications.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying what Urban Meyer did was right, but in the real world, can you see why he would not say anything?
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it should cost him his job. There's lots of things in America where whether you say it or don't say it, there's certain penalties. Urban Meyer could be suspended for a month, but that's not going to do anything. Urban Meyer makes, what, $7 million a year? Wow. Even if you gave him $1 million penalty, he still made $6 million. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Other than firing him, what can you do that's a real penalty? And Urban Meyer is caught with his speech because even if he wanted to say something, now you're getting into confidentiality. And here's another thing, say he did not know, right? And his wife said, hey, Earl Bruce's grandson, he's beating his wife. Now, Urban Meyer does not know for a fact whether that's true. He's never seen it. You see what I'm getting at?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't make any sense for him to go to his boss and say, hey, I think Urban Meyer is beating his wife, right? I'm sorry. It doesn't make any sense for Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer is beating the other guy's wife.
Right. It doesn't make any sense for Urban Meyer to say Earl Bruce's grandson is beating his wife. And then they'd be like, do you have proof? He's like, oh, no, I just heard it. Where'd you hear from? Oh, my wife told me. So do you know? I don't have any idea. I didn't see him beat her.
And we're just joking. We don't think Urban Meyer is beating him.
No. Urban Meyer's not beating anybody. We don't want to get sued, okay? I know Urban Meyer is probably very litigious, okay?
He's probably headed up to here with
But yeah, so the point is that you are damned if you do, and you are damned if you don't. And it's the same thing with and we'll use Aaron Hernandez as a example. Urban Meyer had to know that Aaron Hernandez was a bad boy. Would you say that's fair?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he says something and he's wrong, he just got a poor innocent kid whose only chance to get a scholarship might be him kicked off the team. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But if he's right, maybe he could have been kicked off the team before he killed those people. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But Urban Meyer is not a prophet. He cannot predict the future. And he can't. So you have to try to look at it from Urban Meyer's perspective. A lot of these people are like, well, zero tolerance towards women. And it's like, okay, but now you have to look at what is the penalty for what he did. Does the penalty fit the crime of...
This country is making it so that you're afraid to do anything.
And that's the whole point.
I mean, even just having this discussion
is
it's like
awkward.
We're joking, and then we're worried about
people suing
our
us.
jokes, which should be obvious.
Right.
But nothing is obvious anymore.
And some people are like, you know what, Urban Meyer is right. He should not have reported it. But we hate Ohio State, so we're going to turn them in, so they have to fire him. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now you got another layer of if you went to Michigan, they're all probably like, oh, fire Urban Meyer!
Well, that's the thing. I mean, let's say it's not the Ohio State football team. Let's say it's a guy who owns a gas station and his assistant manager is beat.
Right.
Is it the guy who owns the gas station? Is it his fault?
Yeah.
Should he have said something?
Yeah. And that's exactly right. And they're like, well, you fired Johnny. He was only making minimum wage. Well, yeah, because he came to work and his girlfriend drove up, and then Johnny beat his girlfriend. We saw him beat his girlfriend. And they're like, oh, well, you can't have a double standard.
But what I'm saying is the guy who works at the gas station, that probably wouldn't happen because nobody cares.
Because nobody cares.
Yeah, because he's not making $7 million.
Right. And that's exactly right. And so you are afraid to say anything. You're afraid to say A because you'll get sued. You're afraid to say B because you are liable. You're afraid to say C because what if you're wrong? Again, the only reason we know Urban Meyer, even if he knew in 2015, there was no police report. Again, it was hearsay. Apparently this guy's grandson who beat his wife, all the wives of the Ohio State coaches knew it, supposedly, allegedly, right? Well, what can you do on allegedly if there's no police report?
Well, who was it? Was it Einstein who said after World War II that the next World War is going to be fought with sticks and stones?
I think it was.
I almost have something similar to that. It's like I almost think we're going to get to the point where we're just going to be grunting at each other.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be too afraid to actually use words.
Right. And like I said, it's not I bash on the left a lot, okay, because all of a sudden, but the right is the same way. And that's why I use the Urban Meyer example, because it's a real world example of where you are screwed, right? Urban Meyer never beat anybody, to our knowledge, right? He never beat, his coach's wife. But Urban Meyer didn't beat anybody, and he never saw anybody. Urban Meyer, okay, let me
But
go.
somehow he's being investigated.
Right. Urban Meyer didn't beat anybody. Urban Meyer did not have a police report, right? And Urban Meyer only knew from hearsay. He never witnessed it.
Right.
So what can you say,
Yeah. Yeah, what is he supposed to do?
right? And that's why I'm going to change the subject a little bit. You remember Harvey Weinstein, right?
Mm-hmm.
Harvey Weinstein supposedly raped all those women, and me and you, we made jokes about it because we said, even if he raped 80 and 40 of them are lying, 40 of them are still telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
When you have 80 allegations where there's smoke, there's fire, right? There's not 80 allegations against Urban Meyer. You see what I'm saying? And Harvey Weinstein people knew about it, but people were afraid of Harvey Weinstein. You see what I'm saying? Because they were afraid of their livelihood being taken away. They were afraid I wouldn't get that $2 million film project. I went to Harvey Weinstein's room because I wanted to be an actor. You see what I'm getting at? Harvey Weinstein had the power over those women. Okay? And so the allegations, when they didn't come out, doesn't make... I'm trying to get at that there were jokes about Harvey Weinstein. Like comedians said, oh, never go to Harvey Weinstein's room, right?
Mm-hmm.
People knew about it, and nobody ever said anything, right? Because there was no police report, and that's the way, Harvey Weinstein's in power. If you stand up to Harvey Weinstein, you just ruined your own career. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
Urban Meyer's thing is different because none of Urban Meyer, that assistant coach didn't control his future. You see what I'm saying? And if he knew for a fact, if he saw that girl get beaten, I'm sure he would have reported it. But you cannot go by hearsay and innuendo. Now, if you are a blogger like me, right, and do Beacon of Speech like Ted, we can speculate on things, and we can change names, we can be vague, and we can wink at each other and know what we're talking about, right? We're probably not getting sued, except for that guy in Wisconsin last episode, okay? But the point is...
What guy was that?
The blogger in Wisconsin who, he was a teacher. Remember we talked about him? So, hello. That's fine with me. As long as Mom said okay. No. I locked Ted in not Ted. I locked Kevin in the bedroom. That'd be funny if I locked you.
Did Beacon of Speech with Kevin.
Yeah, Beacon of Speech with Kevin. I locked Ted in the bedroom, and Kevin is sitting here, and he's just going to bark the whole time. Right? You notice all the people come in.
Probably get more views.
Yeah. All the dogs are like, we love Kevin. All right. They're back. It's an hour. We're gonna stop here. We're gonna cross off this last thing, and like I said, Kevin really did a number on Beacon of Speech tonight. So, yeah, Kevin was a pain. So I'm gonna do song of the day if that's okay. Is it okay if I do that Jack White song? Did you like it?
Yeah.
Song of the day is Jack White's Over and 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 Over. And you said it was good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is Beacon of Speech. Please don't sue us. I'm Fred Hunt. That's Ted Coley. Sue Ted Coley. He's got more money than me.